guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy. He is sharing a story about his buddy. An unfortunate story about his buddy who found out after 12 years with a 12-year-old daughter that his daughter isn't his. That his wife pulled some serious BS when they were having trouble having a kid or growing a kid, whatever you want to call it. And you're going to see how this guy handles things, and it doesn't end too well for the wife. And I thought we're going to go over here a sad one, making the point why, in my opinion, and the opinion of many, paternity tests, DNA tests, whatever you want to call it, should be mandatory. And just how many guys out there are walking around have no idea that their kid or kids is not theirs. It's freaking crazy here. But before I get into this real quick, I've been saying this all week. If you guys are on X, formerly Twitter, definitely come check me out. I'm on there right now. My handle is called SSM Channels. As you are aware, YT isn't a fan of channels like mine too much anymore, so I got to promote in other ways, because some of you guys are like, SSM, you post videos, and I don't know. Well, over on X, you'll get updates all the time. Not to mention that it's growing quick. We're having a lot of fun over there, sharing news articles and memes and all chatting with each other. So definitely come on over here, join that community. We'll have a good time. But I'm still doing videos here every day. Don't worry about that, guys. Okay, on to the story. It says here, hello, SSM. This is what happened to a guy that I was pretty close to. His life changed drastically in the mid-2000s. If this helps someone going through a similar situation, then telling this is justified. My friend got married to a woman younger than him by 12 years. They had a pretty decent relationship. They got along well, had similar interests, and played sports and went to the gym together. They both had full-time jobs and were career-oriented. They both had good relationships with their in-laws, and that's what everybody saw from on the outside looking in. Okay, sounds like a pretty good thing. What could go wrong? My friend, who I will call John, and his wife I'll call Jane, had told me that his wife had been talking about having a family. At the time of this story, he's around 40 years old, and she's 28. They took an analytical approach to the situation. Although the idea was a bit frightening for my friend, as he was 40, he admitted that he did want an heir to pass on his father's legacy. He and his wife worked everything out financially. They considered daycare or his wife staying at home. They finally decided that the best deal was her to be a stay-at-home parent was the best choice. Well, they started having unprotected SCX shortly afterwards, waiting patiently for any sign of pregnancy. After 6 months and 0 results, they decided to go to the doctor. Blood and hormone tests for her, sperm modified for him. 6 months of getting it on and she's not pregnant. Yeah, something's up. The wife's initial tests were fine. They gave the husband the option to have SCX with a special condom and bring it in, or come in and give a sample. He decided on the latter. He went with his wife so she could help with the sample, and he told me it was kind of fun. They just had to wait. Well, the next day the doctor called and said for them to please come back today to get the results. That gave John pause. He called me to say he was worried, and I asked about what. He said suppose he was sterile. I told him to quit worrying until he knew for sure. Well, after 6 months, and she's not getting pregnant, something's wrong with somebody here. It's crazy. You always hear this. It's like the people that really want to have kids, there's a problem, some medical issue. But the people who don't want kids, they can breed like Catholic rabbits. It's crazy. Well, the next day I got a visit from John. He just showed up at my house unannounced. He looked pretty worn out and depressed. I asked him what was wrong and offered him a drink, which he refused. He looked up at me He looked up at me with his hands through his hair, and I could see he was very upset. He told me he can't have kids. That sucks. At least not his own biological kids. He was sterile, just like he had feared. He told me he felt like a failure, and he never failed at anything in his life, and he also never failed his wife. Dude, it's not your fault. It happens. I didn't know what to say to him. He was a guy that I've known forever, and I've never seen him like this before. He always been resilient and could figure out the toughest of problems and fix anything. Well, he can't fix this. I'm sorry to say that. I felt bad for him, and he asked if I thought he should give his wife a divorce so she can have a family with somebody else. Well, knowing what I know, guys, that would have been probably a good idea. I told him he was talking crazy, that she loved him, they could work something out. He said the doctor told him that their options were adoption or a donor. He said he was so sad that he couldn't pass on his father's genes. He had a great respect for his father. Okay, so I guess he's the only child or something. He left to go see his wife, and they had some decisions to make. I didn't check in with John for a couple weeks, but eventually he called and asked if we could have lunch. He wanted my opinion on something, and I said sure. We met at a place where we could just hang out and talk, and he asked me if I knew about a sperm donation. I said nothing. He said that he and his wife had decided on that route to parenthood. He then asked me if I would consider being the donor. Fuck no. No way. That's crazy. Okay, it's crazy in my opinion. I wouldn't want my buddy being the father of my no. There are ways to do your homework and other people, these sperm donor places, but having your buddy, no. No for the guy telling the story and no for the other one. He's just desperate. Without hesitation, I turned him down. Good, sir. That would have been a terrible idea. There's no way I or anybody else could think of or could handle that. I told him it would be better if it was anonymous because no one could see their biological child and not want to be a part of their life. It would be a nightmare for both parties. Thank you. Your buddy here is just deeply emotional, not thinking straight. He thought about it and finally agreed. He said that he'd go talk to his wife and he'd let me know. After a few months, we got the news that his wife was expecting. Hey! He was over the moon. He didn't give me any details but referred to the baby as his baby, no other explanation. In public, they were the most excited parents to be in the world. Fast forward to the birth, and they had the most beautiful baby girl ever. She looked like his wife, and they were the most doting parents ever. Their family was complete. So, we'd love for the story to end here, and they lived happily ever after, but sadly, not in this fucking world. It says here, John was the perfect father. Through the years, he didn't miss a single event. He attended every dance review, every sporting event, was the most supportive dad he ever could be. His family was his entire world. He was his daughter's protector, advisor, and best friend. His wife's knight in shining armor, John was extremely happy with his life. One day, at school basketball game that his daughter was playing in, he noticed Jane was talking to a man he didn't recognize. It didn't look casual to him. It looked very intense. John told me that he went over to check things out, and he told me he went to where they were standing and asked what was going on. The man looked at him and said it was none of his business. Hey, motherfucker, you're over here having a serious conversation with my wife, and it's looking pretty heated. I don't know you, so don't you tell me it's nothing, motherfucker. I'll knock you out in front of these kids playing basketball. John says if he was talking to his wife in that way, and Jane said, John, this is Mitch. We dated years ago before I met you. Neither man made any attempt to shake a hand or acknowledgement. John asked Jane if she really needed to talk to him. Jane told him that she would finish with him and be right over. No, sweetheart, I don't know this guy. You're walking away right now. And I don't care that you dated years ago. I'm your husband. There's no chatting with this fucking guy. And hey, asshole, you talk to me like that again, I'm going to knock you the fuck out. John reluctantly went back to his seat. Smack! What the fuck, John? After about 10 minutes, Jane returned to the seat next to John and began watching her daughter play basketball. I would have handled it that way. John was silent and didn't ask any questions until they got home and their daughter went to shower. He asked Jane what was so intense about their conversation. She said they had a bad breakup and he, throughout the years, was trying to apologize. No, that did not look like an apology. He asked why he hadn't heard of this guy before, and when was the last time besides tonight, and she talked to him. She hesitated before saying the last time was about a year ago, and before that, 12 years ago. 12 years ago. What happened in our lives 12 years ago? I can tell you that paternity means a great deal to you. Your mind is in overdrive. John did some quick... This is what he told his buddy who was telling the story said. John did some quick math in his head and stared at Jane, and then he grabbed his car keys and left without a word. John went to his mother-in-law's house. He said he needed to talk to them. He asked them about Mitch. They were confused about why he wanted to know. He said that Jane was talking to him last night and they looked close. Her mother said that was impossible because she broke up with him a long time ago. He tried the time to get back with her, but she wasn't interested. John felt like Jane tried to make him believe that Mitch broke up with her by saying he was apologetic. That was her first lie to him. Here we go. It ain't gonna be her last. Well, the next basketball game Now, I'm going to stop here because we're going to go on to the more shit here. This is when John should have went back home and said, "We're going to talk, sweetheart, and you're going to lay the fucking cards on the table." But that's not what happens. Well, the next basketball game was on next Friday. Of course, John and Jane were there. After a while, John saw Mitch walk up. This isn't a fucking accident here. Hey, asshole, what the fuck do you want? He sat on the other side of the gym. He noticed that whenever his daughter scored or got a rebound, he cheered. No reaction for any other player. He looked at Jane and she was visibly nervous. When the game was over, she quickly gathered her daughter's things and hurried and went to the car. They drove separately, so Jane went home, but John stayed behind. Mitch was there, so John went over to him. He asked what was he doing there. He said he liked sports and enjoyed the game last week. Really? Junior high or elementary school fucking basketball, that's why you're there? John switched gears and he asked Mitch what was going on with him and Jane, and Mitch told him to ask Jane. No, asshole, I'm asking you, and you're going to fucking answer, otherwise we got a problem. John started driving home. All the while he had to figure out how to ask Jane. He got to his driveway and remained in his car. He could see Jane and his daughter through the window. He had a very bad feeling. Yeah, I would think so. Remember, guys, as I'm telling this story, this is this dude telling the story about his buddy here and putting it into words that, in case you're thinking, this is bullshit. People have written to me before telling stories of their friends and this type of thing. John went inside and sat at the dining room table. He told her that she played a great game, and she said thanks, blah, 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 blah. When his daughter went upstairs to study, he told her that he and his mom were going to go take a ride. Will she be okay? And she said yes. John asked, where are we riding to? Jane asked, where are we going to? And John said nowhere specifically. He wanted to talk to Jane alone. When they got to the car, he asked her if anything was going on with her and Mitch. She assured him that what they had was over years ago, and she was deeply and completely in love with him. Well, really, why are you acting so strange? He asked why he had an interest in their daughter. She asked, why did he think that? He told her what he saw. Then he told her what Mitch had said to him, to ask Jane. Jane said she didn't know what he meant. They went back and forth and back home, and John's mind was racing. Lying right to his face. Come on, he knows something's up. Well, the next day, John called me, and he said he had something to discuss. I was his friend and would always listen and help him if I could. He was a good and honest man. Our conversation started that he asked me if I remembered what he told me about his options for having a kid. And I said I did. He told me that there was a third option, one that had a lower overall success rate. It involved going into his testicles and removing a single sperm cell. They would then implant that into a harvested egg from Jane. It was very expensive and not covered by insurance. They had not expected to be able to afford it. Lord knows how much this would cost. Jane's dad took out a second mortgage on the house. He said he'd take it off her inheritance. He gave us the money to have the procedure. Holy shit. Man, that's crazy. The first try didn't work. Neither did the second try, but the third time was the charm. So, all this time he's really thinking this is his kid. The biological daughter, because of this procedure that cost so much that the father-in-law had to take a second fucking mortgage. John told me about this Mitch character. He felt something was not right. If Jane was correct about the 12 years since she talked to Mitch, the math made sense. And he asked what should he do. I told him that Jane was the perfect wife and mother in my eyes, but if he's worried, to come right out and ask her. If it makes him feel better, ask for a paternity test. There you go. That'll get her talking. It was almost unthinkable to John, but his whole life depended on the truth. Well, John has made his whole world his wife and daughter. And I advise against making particularly your whole world your wife. Given that, 50% or more marriages end in divorce. That night after the daughter went to bed, John told Jane we had to talk. She asked what was wrong, and he said he wanted the truth, no matter how hard it was to hear. Who was his daughter's father? Ooh, I can imagine her reaction. She said, you are, of course. He asked in a different way. Who is the biological father? Her eyes welled up. She said she couldn't believe he would ask her that. After 12 years as her father, how could he ask her that? "Just tell me," he said, and he shouted at her. Then came the full waterworks. Hobag Handbook Chapter 2. Deny, 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 then cry, cry, cry. She said she was desperate and couldn't wait any longer. She said she knew she wouldn't be pregnant after the third attempt. She was going through hell, and so was John. She thought that if he was okay with a donor, then it wouldn't matter. What wouldn't matter, honey? All she wanted was a child to be raised by both of them. Paternity or genetics didn't matter to her. They matter to me, bitch. She said to remember how happy we are and to please forgive her. She was acting in the best interest of the family. Oh, really? Why don't you tell me the truth? I'll let you know if it's in the best interest of our family. Who? John screamed. He wanted to hear it from her mouth. Mitch, she screamed. That's the second lie. Big fucking surprise. So, do you think Mitch donated his sperm and through the process and they inserted it in her? Or was she just fucking Mitch until she got pregnant? Gee, I wonder. John asked her, tell me it was done the medical way. Mitch's seat in a straw with a medical personnel present. Well, her silence told the whole story. When, John asked, and Jane said they met every day for a week to ensure success. Oh my God. She said, it worked. We got pregnant. We've been happy. We should thank him. This poor guy. She found her ex-boyfriend, and she fucked him for a week every day, and she got pregnant. And for 12 years, this guy thought this was his daughter. Meanwhile, obviously, she looked like the wife, but not him. That was the third lie. That's the day my friend John died inside. I think pretty much every guy would die inside after that. The wife's lied to him all this time. The daughter's not his. After this conversation with Jane, he packed up his shit and moved in with me. Just long enough for him to get his things and his life in order. He never spoke to Jane again. He filed for divorce and moved away. That was many years ago. I've only spoken to him a few times since. He's a broken and bitter man. And I'm guessing that means also he has had nothing to do with our daughter ever since. I don't know how the hell it possibly worked out with child support and all that, but I'm not going to dig into that. The point is, he was done with her, divorced her, and left town. I'm guessing he obviously had to pay child support. But regardless, and who knows what the terms of the divorce were, but this poor bastard. Now, it's not the daughter's fault. I feel bad for John. What she did to him was horrible. And I feel bad for that poor daughter because she lost her dad. Biologically, wasn't her dad, but, as he was this great dad to her. Who knows what happened to them? Jane, on the other hand, has remarried. What, to Mitch? Doesn't speak to Mitch and has to live with the knowledge that she ruined a good man's life. I'm sure she's more than fine with that. Her parents don't speak to her much anymore either. Oh, that's good. I don't know what she tells her daughter about John and Mitch. Probably throws John under the bus for leaving. Guaranteed. She calls me from time to time to ask if I've heard from John. Even if I did, I tell her no. She doesn't deserve the knowledge of him. No, she doesn't. The only way I would say is if the daughter reached out to this dude telling the story here. If daughter reached out, and then I would check with John to see if, he may not want to hear from her, even though it's not her fault. He says, we still don't know why Mitch appeared like he did. Maybe to set the record straight, maybe to show Jane he was the better man, maybe out of resentment from the breakup. No matter the reason, Jane turned to Mitch instead of coming to terms with John. Because she wanted it all, she lost it all. And that, my friends, is why this story has to be told. And there you go, guys, an abrupt ending there. It's not the ending you want to hear. Usually, we like stories where the guy comes out on top, but that's not life. But I guess the theme of this whole thing is making the point is, God almighty, paternity tests and DNA tests should be mandatory. Holy freaking crap. Can you begin to imagine if all of a sudden, some way, somehow, it was revealed, the truth, our whole society would come crashing down because there'd be so many babies out there that, oh my God. But anyhow, what a sad story, but it goes to show you just can't trust anybody. It's a freaking mess. And I feel bad for that guy. I mean, that guy's never going to... At this point, because he was 40 years old when they got married and they were trying for the girl, Then he must have been 52 when 53 when he found out. And it's been years. He said, I think, in the early 2000s. So, the dude's probably in his, I don't know, upper 60s or 70s at this point. And you can see how he's just a broken man after this whole thing. I can't imagine going back from all that, But then again, guys that come back from worse, who knows? But anyhow, bro, I appreciate you sharing the story. Tell your friend John, if you tell him, we're thinking about it and we're sorry what happened to him. Can't blame him for leaving his wife. And it's his own business how he decided to handle the daughter, but I feel bad for the daughter. But holy crap. But anyway, guys, for those of you guys that think about getting married, remember these things. For those of you guys that want to have kids and there's trouble having kids, remember this story here. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below what you think about this. And, guys, you got a good story to share, whether it's your own personal story, a question, or something that happened to a buddy of yours that, with his permission, you want to share to help the guys out there. Send it my way, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. And if it's a good one, I'll definitely cover it. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.